Chapter 8, Nirvana. A peace of mind settled over me during those days, because I did not fight my death. I realized that all pain and suffering I had after I died were simply illusions, and were exacerbated by an unconscious mind trying to hold on to its consciousness. To be at oneness, all I ever had to do was let go of desire, aversion, and illusion. I was simply a candle that had been lit, and then blown out. This was nothing to get upset over, for now I knew, without an eye, that the elements of that candle go on. I knew not what I knew not. I said a peace settled in those days, but, actually there were no more days for me. Communicating in language the notion of the eternal is not impossible, but it is very challenging, and no language can do it justice. This is because the eternal transcends time and space, and so anything written in the fields of time and space cannot describe something that transcends it. Even the word eternal does not do eternity justice, because eternity is beyond itself. So, the only way to communicate the eternal through words is by use of poetry or very skillfully written books or articles that help take the reader's mind out of their normal way of thinking. Poetry, when it is written expertly, is a language that projects one outward, and thus, back into their universal mind and body. Poetry is the language of that which is beyond language. So, I am using terms now that are meant to help you understand. But, know this, my experience of being dead is beyond descriptors and even non-descriptors, and I hope that makes sense to you. It really is difficult to convey such a thing. Along these difficult lines, let me convey an experience I had one day. My room had become a vision of where I felt most at peace, and it floated around in the ether of the great nothingness I had found. I could transform it, make it disappear, do whatever I wished. I could set it on solid foundation again and have a home, and so I did just that. I built a rustic cabin in the mountains with my mind/no mind. I figured on earth is where I needed to be still, for there was still so much poetry to be gleaned from its beauty and problems. Occasionally, my mother or father entered and walked about the room, unaware that they were also in the mountains, or when I felt like it, floating out on the sea for a day. They talked to the air and I was the air, the walls, the desk. I heard them from wherever I happened to be. I was on the sea, having transformed my room, for a while, into a large wooden raft. I never did go for things that were too fancy. I preferred cabins to mansions, and rafts to yachts. Now, I could float, if that is what you want to call it, above the water and even leave the earth, but I still liked the sensation of the raft, so that is what I used. Anyway, I was on the sea and I wished for the nighttime with a large, full moon to come, and it was instantly so. The moon dusted the sea with its white light, like a million fingertips, painting the crest of each tiny wave with gold. Yellow and white, I stared at the water and thought of my long, strange life, the lisping, Karen Richardson, my speech tutor, reading license plates from the back seat and annoying Mara, my sister, the first inspiration from the muse, figuring out the muse was an Apsara, writing poetry and more poetry, the trip with Morgan, the circle in the grass, Morgan's death, the loss of my leg, all that hard recovery and physical therapy, getting fitted with my writer's prosthesis, writing talking for Morgan, winning the Pulitzer, meeting the president, and then the infection, and dying. And, after death? On the sea out here, still with my prosthetic leg. I had grown accustomed to it, and didn't want to use my mind/no mind to get rid of it. In a way, it was one of the best things that ever happened to me. Every time I looked at it, I firmly remembered Morgan, and excellent poetry from the heart came flowing out. I heard something, out on the water then, not the usual splashes or mammal calls. A spirituous rill of tiny dancing figures came encircling my body from my head to my feet, and I was mesmerized. I thought I recognized them but they were too tiny for me to be sure. Suddenly, they vanished in scattered directions out to sea, but before I could even formulate a thought about it, from every single glimmer of moonlight they jumped out of the water, standing as tall as I above the waters. There were 1,000,000 of them or more, as far as the eye could see. There were several surrounding my raft, and I stared in amazement as I realized who they were, the Apsaras, the muses that spoke through me. Closest to me, directly in front, were two staring right at me, with beautiful, wide, open and black eyes. They wore bright red bindis, had thick, flowing eyelashes and highly sculpted and thin eyebrows. At the top of their heads, the Apsara on the right had a flaming crown of a pink lotus inside a golden lotus, and the one on the left had a spiked crown that reached a foot taller than her head. The latter's exhaling smoke through its tip, and with Brahmins coming out and weaving into the fabric of the night and disappearing. I knew immediately that the latter was Urvashi. Their mouths were painted a reddish-black, full and lined. Their ears were long and flat against their head, with lotus blossoms as earrings for each. Around their necks were different versions of the same necklace, in shapes of lotuses and bejeweled with the fieriest of rubies. They were each clothed in tight-fitting, sheer dresses that made visible in a hinting, playful way, their ample bosoms and their zoftig bodies. The ends of their feet and their hands were wispy, split-toed hands, but with a vapor that seemed to show, whenever you blinked, a full hand or a full foot for a second. They were beautiful and I began to cry, but as you know by now, I wasn't really crying, and I wasn't on a raft, and I wasn't really seeing them. But, they were still real. Do you understand? In this place that wasn't a place, there was no seeing, crying, or anything else. In fact, I had come to learn it was no different than the life I had once thought I lived as Kavindra, Pulitzer Prize-winning poetess. Do not cry, spoke the Apsara on the right. We are happy to meet you as well. Her face seemed set in just the slightest smile, as if she wasn't giving into emotion from any direction. Her words were watery, refreshing and cool against my skin. I am happy to meet you too, I said, then looking all around, I shouted, I am happy to meet all of you. Shouting is not necessary, dear one. When you speak to one of us, you speak to all. I am sorry, I am just amazed, you are the most beautiful women I have ever seen. Again, the all, my dear. You are the most beautiful woman we have ever seen. I pondered that for a second while tiny Brahmins from her partner continued to shoot into the night air. Finally, I said, are you saying what I think you're saying? Am I, are you saying I am one of you? You said the words first, did you not? Look into your heart, for we are all poets, musicians, painters, martial artists, and some of us were once artists of making a home comfortable and full of love. We also come from every facet of the business world. We now guide humanity and give whatever is needed. Sometimes it is a poem to a budding poet, sometimes love or things of exotic, sexual flavor, and at other times, it is boldness, strength to those who feel unempowered. We embrace all that we are and retain an identity that is unshatterable. We are the backbone of the world. But you said I am beautiful. I do not look like you, do I? Have you looked in a mirror lately? You are radiant. The millions of Apsaras whispered in unison and I heard it all inside me, in my veins, my heart, my toes and mind. Then, the moon came down and turned the sky black by transforming itself into a full-length mirror. I couldn't believe what I saw. I am sorry, but for this, you will just have to use your imagination. It was too spiritual to describe, and to do so would cause it to lose its meaning. All I can say is that I am an Apsara, and I took my place beside my sisters that night on the waters, my prosthetic leg still there. And, my goddess, I knew I liked that leg but, until then, I had no idea how beautiful it really was. Apparently, the Brahmins really liked it too. Some time later, you might say much time later, I was at my cabin in the mountains, and a voice called out to me. It was time for me to accept my first calling, and for this one I decided to take a very literal approach, and appear as human. A young poetess, someone who had started writing late in life, was just realizing the potential she had inside. It was up to me to bring it out, as I wasn't just an Apsara, rather, I had now become the muse. So, I went to her and saw into her room. I saw her putting together divine phrasings with judicious placement of adjectives and varying descriptors for common nouns. By her side were an electronic thesaurus and a set of dictionaries, including one in Latin. I was very pleased, and eager to help, so I touched her mind with a very careful stroke, for being a muse is also an art form. She heard me, and looked up from her writing. She looked around and, later that night, as she lay in bed, she whispered, "If you are real, I wish for you to come to me, my muse." So, I touched her mind to go in search of the circle, just as I once had. Then, some sense of later and there was a knock upon my cabin door.